And my name is Michael Holmes, and today I'm going to be discussing Jean Piaget and his life work, his theory of cognitive development. We're going to mostly focus on the cognitive development theory that he came up with and its stages. We'll talk a little bit about the historical context prior, or what was there before he came up with these theories, or why he came up with these theories. Excuse me. Um, But a little bit about Jean Piaget. He was a Swedish zoologist. And what I find interesting about him is that even at an early age, at 11, he published his first research paper on a albino sparrow. So it tells you that this man is a very highly intelligent person. He cares deeply about research. His doctorate was in zoology and philosophy. Um, and what I find interesting is that thought process that you get from studying animals in the wild, or um, what we discussed in seventh grade is the life sciences. He uses those same thinkings and thought processes when he's developing his theories later on. And really, uh, another interesting thing I find about him is that he says he's a genetic estimologist. I apologize, I butchered that word, but the quote he uses is that what that is proposing, it's the discovery of the roots of different various forms of knowledge, and I just find that very fascinating because you'll see that he really cares about how things. If you're looking at if you do the research and you see what he looks at, or his conclusions on his theories, is that he really focuses on the point A to point B. Um, he also has the thought process that intelligence isn't just gained, but it can be developed, and everything is done in stages. And so, a little bit about historical context of so prior to uh, his theories, children were viewed as many adults. They were just adults, just in a smaller form. They thought the same way we did. They interacted with the world the same way we did. And there really wasn't a lot of studies done to understand children and how they learn, or how they think, or how they process the world around them. And again, intelligence was a very fixed notion. So if you were born extremely intelligent, that you would be extremely intelligent. But if you were not born with all that knowledge, there would be no way for you to develop that knowledge. Um, some of his inspirations came from actually his work outside of, or his first, position in France, when he was conducting intelligence tests on children. And what he found interesting, or what sparked that desire for him to understand more, was that when young children would get the wrong answer, he'd want to understand how they got that answer, or why they got that answer. And that really sparked a change in him to switch from, the zoologist philosopher to a psychologist. And he also pulled from his children as he was raising his three children, how they developed. He observed, all those observations from him watching and raising his children. He pulled into his theories, and I just find that interesting. But his theory of cognitive development is really broken into. We're going to focus on just the stages themselves, the four main stages, and again, these stages aren't fixed. They can. Um, I'll give some general age ranges, but that doesn't necessarily mean that at that age you should be in this stage. It's more so he focuses. He has instead of there's the argument of nature versus nurture. He has a very nature view that we learn, we develop through experience, through interacting with our environment, and we start out in that or a sensory motor stage, which is that newborn stage to toddler stage. From 0 to 2 years old, is how he classified it. And really what his focus is saying that, or what he is stating in that stage, our focus as children in that stage is going to be on our physical sensations or learning to actually walk. I mean, that's the beginning stages where we start to kind of get an idea that we are around, that we exist. Um, but it's really limited. Like, we don't have the recognition yet that if an object's not in front of us, then it doesn't exist. So if peekaboo is a great example. When you're playing peekaboo with a young child, that newborn, the toddler, and you put your hands over your eyes, in their minds, you're disappeared. You're no longer there. But when your hands come back, they can see you again. And it's that recognition isn't fully developed yet. They're starting to get there, but they're really just, those are the main focuses. Um, you'll see them putting, uh, when their hands are on everything, they're always putting it in their mouth. They're always trying to discover what it is, and that's really the early stages. But as they get older, they experience more things, or they interact with their environment more. They move from that sensory motor stage to that pre-operational stage. And what Piaget is saying is that you go from, like, having that limited knowledge of the environment, and it starts to expand a little bit. Your view is still egocentric. It's very based on how you feel, um, how you see the world. That's how you think other people see it. Children start to develop their imaginations. They have like imaginary friends at this stage. And um, what I find interesting is the animism part of it. I was just thinking of Toy Story, where Andy, he's playing with his toys, and in the Toy Story, he's about this age where playing with your toys, and he goes off, and then the toys come to life. And I just found that very interesting, because as adults, you can still have that imagination, but it really starts to develop at this stage. Now, again, as they're interacting more with their peers or their social group, going to uh, interact with people the same age, they start to develop a less egocentric view. Maybe me, poking her hurt, instead of thinking, well, why is she crying that I poked her? She should understand. So they're going from that all about how I think and feel to their other people's emotions that could play. They start to understand, like, conservation, and we're not talking about like conserving, in nature. We're talking about the theory of conservation, like nothing, once it is changed, it's still there. And I always think of water in that instance. You have ice melts into water, water goes into vapor. I always thought that was very interesting to me, that at this stage they're starting to understand that realizations that even if something changes doesn't mean that it's not there anymore. Or another example, that peekaboo game, it's no longer, peekaboo um, has gone out the window. They know you're there. Just because you cover your eyes, they still know you're there. But we also start to see that they're developing cognitive thinking ability, logical thinking, and this starts to happen, around the ages of like 7 to 11. And again, these stages aren't concrete. It's more so, he explains, as you socialize, as you gain more experience, you may develop faster in one area than others, or you may develop in one area faster than what uh, the pre conceived notion of that range is. Um, but we also start to see in this age things like, when we say logical thought, we're talking about a great example that I was reading about is math. Is a great example. You start to learn addition and subtraction. That if you have one apple and you eat it, you no longer have an apple. you know, that's really starts at this stage. But as that child progresses and learns more, um, we move from a formal or we move from that concrete operation to a formal stage where they start to think of abstractly. And he just, describes it as where scientific thought emerges. And as a seventh grade science teacher, I'm at this stage where I'm teaching young students things like the scientific method, observing our surroundings. What did you think about what you saw? That's really where this capability of that type of thought that develops. And what I find interesting about, again, his theory on these stages is it's all based on experience. It's all based on interacting with the world, and that's really that nature versus nature or nurture coming out, where he's on the side of nature. Um, but there also leaves a lot of room for criticism. He is the founder, or one of the founders, of what we consider of childhood development today. But he focuses more so on the destination from getting point A to point B, but not necessarily how things um, help get you there. That was one of the criticisms that, as I was reading, that I uh, understood was that he really most, like I said again, focuses on the destination, like getting to the destination. So yes, you go through these stages, but not necessarily, you know, in the same way. So you have different different learning methods, different styles of teaching. All those things blend in together to help that child get there. And that's one criticism I have seen from his theory. And again, without these theories that he started in the time frame he started them, when people really thought of children as just young adult. I mean, just as adults. I mean, think about that. If you expected your 2 year old to start paying bills, just like you have bills to pay, you understand why you're paying the bills, but you know they are obviously not going to. And at that, before he started recognizing that children think differently, there wasn't that thought process. There wasn't that research in place. Um, and really, he did help change and help shape what we think of childhood psychology and childhood learning today. And without that, without him taking those steps um, of studying, of recognizing that when he was giving those intelligence tests in France, that children do learn differently, we really wouldn't necessarily have um, the knowledge that we have today about children. So he really sparked, I guess, a revolution in understanding children. So again, thank you for listening. These are some of my references that I used to put together my presentation. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you again. Bye.